Welcome to SECT. I am Cierra Clark, joined by a special guest today, Taylor Davis from ESPN and the SEC Network. But first, make sure you guys download the app today and use the promo code SECU to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Taylor, thank you so much for joining me. You are coming off of a busy football season, and now you are full knee-deep into gymnastics season. Not everybody knows a lot about gymnastics, so we're going to start with one of the most powerhouse teams in the sport, and that's Oklahoma. Last year was their first time in the league in the SEC. They were always dominant in the Big 12, winning national titles, and they were able to win a national title their first year in the SEC. So what adjustments have you seen from Oklahoma from their transition from the Big 12 to the SEC?
Yeah, it's a great question. And thank you so much for having me also. Watching Oklahoma's assimilation to the SEC so quickly surprised me this much. I'm not kidding. This group is built different. This program is built different. It starts with KJ Kindler and their philosophy around getting specific athletes that resonate with their coaching style and how they go about doing things. It translates year after year. Now, with that said, what I do think is interesting is they did not win the SEC championship. LSU won the SEC championship, but they ultimately went on a run in postseason, absolutely dominated in Fort Worth, which I was on the call of, and they just continue to reload every single year. And so I think it's incredibly impressive that even with them joining the most stacked conference in college gymnastics, bar none, they were able to maintain the exact same level of standard expectation that it almost didn't matter. And I say that with a lot of respect for the SEC as a whole, but the way that Oklahoma goes about things, the competitive nature of that program, it was going to acclimate wherever you put them. And they're continuing to show that they're built for a run again this year. It is wild to watch, but I have so much respect for how they go about their business.
And for those of y'all who don't watch gymnastics, there is also a ranking, not the AP poll, but similar to that. And 7 of the top 10 teams in all of college gymnastics are from the SEC. What is it about this conference that the athletes are able to dominate in the sport?
100%. And we're only 3 weeks into the season. And the thing about gymnastics, it gets steadily better as the season goes on. A lot of these athletes are going to do upgraded skills the further we go into season. There's an intentional element with how you pace yourself through season of gymnastics. So the fact that much of the SEC is present in the top 10 and we just freaking started like an hour ago is a testament to how deep it is and how stacked. And it starts first and foremost with the caliber of athletes, because gymnastics it starts very individualized. Like, I mean, a majority of these athletes are starting the sport when they are 3-4 years old. It is wild, but it is very self-focused. You're not part of a team growing up when you're in club or elite, which is a totally different dynamic of this thing. And then you get to college and it truly is part of a team. I mean, your lineup is 6 people. You're going to count 5 of those scores, but you have to have been building mental toughness, physical ability, absolutely, so that your individual contribution make your team elevate. And I think those type of athletes gravitate to the SEC. I see it. Now, that's not to knock programs like, Michigan and UCLA, who are incredible. But if you're just talking top to bottom, how year after year you continue to see the competitive excellence and depth, it's because I think those type of athletes gravitate toward it. And what we also see across all sports, the environments at these SEC meets they're just better. They're just different. And you'll have some great ones in LA. Obviously, everyone's coming out to see Jordan Childs this year. And so you're going to have incredible environments. But every time I go to LSU, the PMAC is full. The PMAC is full like it's a basketball game. It's starting to become that in Norman, Tuscaloosa, Gainesville, Florida. I have had friends come on the road to watch gymnastics meets. They're baffled by the fact, cheerleaders, dance team, pyro, height videos, like it's an experience. And so I think a lot of the athletes also gravitate toward what their 5, 4, maybe sometimes 6 years are going to be like in SEC environments week after week.
Yeah, and I went to Florida. I spent some time in Gainesville covering the Gators, covering Arkansas as well when I covered the news in Little Rock. And what I love about college gymnastics is that it feels like it's obviously a very tough sport, but it feels like a sense of healing in a way from these athletes because, like you said, elite gymnastics is rough on your body.
Yeah.
You're about 3 years old when you're starting. And if you're 16 and don't make it to the Olympics, you honestly have to start weighing your decisions. And it's such an individual sport. And at a young age, that has to take a toll on an athlete mentally. So it's just so nice to see them compete together as teammates and just really hyping themselves up. Like, even, for example, if you're watching a gymnastics meet in Gainesville and they're going against a team like LSU, the fans are not booing the LSU athletes. They're just in awe watching. And that's what I love about college gymnastics.
It's such a good point. And so many of the athletes tell me that they feel like college gymnastics is their reward to a life that was so committed. So many of these athletes don't go to regular high school. They've been homeschooled so that they can train hours on end in the gym every day. They sacrifice from a very young age. The families have to commit so much to have a child pursue this sport. And unlike a lot of the other sports, there is no necessarily future in it other than coaching or being on the television side or something to keep your involvement. But you can't go be a pro gymnast. Your peak is actually 18 years old, pursuing an Olympic dream or beginning your collegiate career. That's the pinnacle. And so I think for a lot of them, they really do soak up the experience of it. And then the fan element, like you were saying, you're not getting the same hostility. Now you've got some fan bases, the Georgia with the spikes on the pads and the Gymnasties in Auburn, they try and add some spice to it. It is still a competition. But I think the nuance of gymnastics makes people watch it, whether you're there in person or on television, and go, I could never, quite literally, even with all due respect, I'm on the sidelines of a football game every single week in the fall, and I'm watching, I'm like, I mean, I could do that element of it. Don't come for me. I'm not being for real. But there's an element of we can all go out in the backyard and attempt to play baseball or basketball. I would never.
Don't try a flip.
So sprint full speed at a stationary object, flip over it 6 feet in the air, and then land on my feet. There's an element of it that just seems like they are defying logic and ability. And I think that makes the fans, enjoy the heck out of the experience, but also have such a mutual respect, even if it is your opponent.
Yeah. And another intense meet that happened this weekend was LSU versus Georgia. And LSU posted its highest road opening score ever. And that still was not enough to take down Georgia. And usually LSU is the more talented team in this aspect, but it just shows the depth of this conference. And then we even saw Mike Tomlin at the meet. His daughter is a freshman at Georgia. So he's like, yeah, she's the athlete of the family.
100%. The amount of people that colleagues and whatnot involved in other sports who watch gymnastics, work on gymnastics, and then go, oh no, this is athletic. It's just a different level. They have muscles on muscles on muscles. It is baffling to me. But yeah, I think this weekend was a great example. And there's parity all over the country right now. I mean, a lot of teams that did really well the week before. I was at the Sprouts Farmers Market Collegiate Quad. We had 8 teams in that meet to kick off the weekend. And some of the ones that looked really strong that weekend kind of struggled this past weekend, but it allowed other teams to kind of make a statement in week 2. So I think the dispersion of talent across the country is always going to be there. And you kind of see the pendulum swing year after year. So unfortunately for Georgia, they were at one point and still are 10 national champions. No one's touched that yet. I mean, Oklahoma is now at 7. They've got 7 of the last 11 too. So it's really been emphasized in recent history. But Georgia is the one that was the example for so long. And unfortunately, that fell off. And so you bring in Cecile Landy, who is obviously known for having been Simone Biles' head coach. They're changing things very quickly in Athens. And last year, obviously, they didn't end very well, and they had some difficulties throughout the season, but it was her first year. She's getting acclimated to the college world. I spoke with Georgia's athletic director about the hire, and he was like, let me make it clear. That hire was done with intention because we are going to compete for national titles again. They aren't shying away from that. And so you're always going to have, the Oklahomas and the Floridas and the LSUs that continue to impress. But you've got teams right on their heels every single year looking to mix things up. Missouri made the Final Four last year. History can be made any given year. And I think it's just a testament to the depth, the type of athletes that you're dealing with. And we've already seen it on display. Georgia got the win over LSU this past weekend for the first time in a long time. And I think the rest of season, you're going to continue to see some upsets.
Yeah. And what some might not understand is just because a team loses on the road, that doesn't necessarily mean they lost, because at the end of the season, they kind of look at the scores together, and then that's how you're placed for regionals and whatnot, all the way on your road to nationals. Now, I do want to ask you about how NIL has made an impact in gymnastics, because you went to Auburn, so I'm sure you know all about Suni Lee when she went to the Olympics and then came to college. And then at Arkansas, there's Jocelyn Roberson, who was an alternate at this most recent Olympics, and she's doing well at Arkansas, competing as a gymnast there. So how incredible is it that athletes can go to the Olympics, make money off their name, image, and likeness, and then come back to college? Because usually it would just be a done deal.
Yes, they literally had to make the decision. Okay, I've made an Olympic team at 15 years old, which is just baffling to me.
Crazy.
And I have to decide right now how that's going to impact me 15 years from now, because I can pursue business endeavors that are coming to me right now as a 15-year-old when I'm at the height, but then I'm going to have to forego an experience of collegiate gymnastics. Like, that decision having to be made in a sport where, like I said, your peak could be prior to college made no sense ever. And so I'm so glad that that's now taken off the table. And we're seeing so many Olympians that are competing in collegiate gymnastics, elite gymnasts that are able to balance both. I mean, Kayla DiCello took a year off to, train for Olympic trials, devastating injury because she was primed for a spot. But anywho, wasn't having to forego one or the other, was able to do both. And now obviously she's back competing in the O-Dome again. And I'm so thrilled that she's still in collegiate gymnastics. And so I think that having to be a decision that these very young athletes had to make for themselves was incredibly unfair. And so the introduction of NIL specifically to a sport like gymnastics, where I also don't feel like it's necessarily being as abused as much as we see happen in other sports.
You'll pay for play in gymnastics. They just
It's also not a bidding war in the transfer portal and things like that. So it really just alleviated some of the serious issues that were being had between the elite and the collegiate world. And I think because of that, it's a direct correlation to why you're continuing to see the talent level increase, the parity across the sport increase, and the fan experience increase, because now you can go on the road and watch Jordan Childs perform. Like, people are literally at Washington, their first meet, it was sold out. And obviously people want to watch great gymnastics, but like, the allure of watching Jordan Childs, of course people are going to want to do that. Same with Joss at Arkansas. So it alleviated a lot of the problems and eliminated some of the controversy that I think was ultimately hindering college gymnastics in particular.
Absolutely. And then you have a big meet this week, LSU, number 4 team in the nation, hosting Kentucky. So conference action is in full swing. And one star I want to ask you about is Kaylin Chio, who is just a bright star in this sport. And so what are you expecting from this LSU team, especially with an athlete like that?
I literally can't say enough good things about Kaylin Chio. Every now and then you come across these athletes that are just different. She's one of those. And it is so incredible to watch her, because she takes such ownership of her sport, as they all do, but girl has an edge to her. And some of them kind of are trying to find that line of what works for them in a sport like this. And I could never pretend like I understand. For some of them, it is more calm and free, but some of them attack it like a dang, I'll say tiger, because she's at LSU. Kaylin is that. And I'll give you an example. This past week at Georgia, and I know it will eat her alive, she fell on bars. And that is so not Kaylin Chio. Vault and floor right after that, she stuck so hard that she nodded to herself. Like, I just did that. That is the depiction of her. I know how much it irritates her when she missteps, but it makes her attack the next thing so much more. I mean, there is a vengeance when she goes to the next level. And so she's just equipped to be a competitor that is very go get it. Don't wait for it to come to you. She goes and gets it. And so I can't say enough. And she's a sophomore, might I add. How the heck are we doing this? She was a 9-time All-American her freshman year. Like, the acclimation to college gymnastics and college life for so many of these athletes takes time, but not for Kaylin Chio. I don't know what's in the water wherever she's living in Baton Rouge, but it's doing something for her. But she is looking to elevate again, even though everything she did her freshman year was so incredible. I would never expect her to say she wants to duplicate anything from last year. She expects to be better. And so I love watching her compete. I love how she's continuing to mature and evolve as she goes further into the competition. And she wants to be the person that the team knows is just a steady constant. She likes that role and expects to deliver. So I'm very excited to see her at home. As we know, a Baton Rouge environment is very, very tough to beat. And it's their home opener with SEC competition coming to town. So incredibly excited to see what LSU puts out there this week. I'm also looking forward to seeing how Kentucky kind of rights the ship a little bit. They won't shy away from the fact that they've had a really brutal start to season. However, we had them at the Sprouts Farmers Market, and Tim Garrison, the head coach, was honest. Like, we're learning a lot about these very young athletes. They have one senior, a handful of juniors. The rest are freshmen and sophomores that are really trying to find out what works for them in competition. Like I was just saying, it's been a little bit of trial and error at the beginning, but it's not a lack of talent. It's certainly not a lack of confidence in coaching. Tim Garrison built this program from a difficult place, so it can be done. I think it's just a matter of them finding that one meet that clicks for them and then going from there. So it's a great opportunity for both of these teams to really show what they're made of in one of the best environments in the SEC.
Yes. And you know all about those environments. You've been covering college gymnastics for a few years now. But I want to talk about how you got into sports, really. Like you also college football for ESPN. And so what was your initial foot in the door? And then how did you make your way to doing both football and gymnastics?
Yeah. The grace of God, honestly. Like, I seriously, every time people ask me that, I'm like, I feel so fortunate and so blessed that it just kind of worked. Timing, opportunity, the right people that saw enough in me. Now, with that, I worked my tail off. So I'll put that in there. But I started my career at ESPN. I was very fortunate to have a job at the network that I ultimately wanted to have my entire career in right out of college. I graduated from Auburn, and ESPN was launching the SEC network the year that I graduated. So there were a lot of opportunities. Now, they were all entry level, ground floor, one step above an intern, but I felt like it was the right way to really learn the ins and outs of the industry, with ultimate aspirations to be a reporter, a host, getting to tell these stories myself. But I ultimately took the production assistant role and began my career on the other side of things. So I learned how to edit and shoot and write and prep all the elements that you see when you sit down and watch. And it's crazy now when I'm holding the mic and talking and they're like, can you like lead into this tease? Like, can you? And I'm like, I used to cut the tease. Like, it's very, very special and surreal to me. Even after all these years of doing it, it never gets old. So I did that for about 4 years, and then was doing some digital content at the time that included Facebook. So we weren't doing Instagram reels. We weren't on TikTok. Like, we would take a P2 camera and a tripod around the office and make some Facebook videos. And I had a couple opportunities. My first ever assignment as a sideline reporter was a gymnastics meet. And I was a PA on gymnastics, but they gave me a shot kind of as a tryout. And I did too. My first one was in Gainesville. So that will always be really special to go back to the O-Dome for gymnastics. And after that, they basically told me, if you want to work in a on-air role, you have to leave production, because it's two separate departments, two different HR policies. Like, you can't operate in both. And you have to take a leave from the company if you're going to change departments. I had to take a 5-month leave. So I quit my full-time benefits, great opportunity job in production. And for 5 months, did whatever I needed to stay ready. I did a lot of free on-air work just to have reps. And other odd and end jobs while I waited for an opportunity that people said would happen, but ultimately couldn't promise me. And by that football season, seriously, by the grace and bosses that believed in me, I had a handful of football games as an opportunity, and year after year, it grew. I had stints. I was a host at the Carolina Panthers. I was a host and team reporter for the Kansas City Royals. So I've bounced around until ESPN put me in a position where that could be my only job. And I am incredibly, incredibly fortunate to do what I do, both football and gymnastics, because they both feel very full circle.
Awesome. And you bring up that waiting period you had. I'm sure that requires lots of faith. And so
Girl.
what advice do you have for people in this industry that are maybe in a waiting period or are looking to break into the sports media industry?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I remember family and friends being like, "You're doing what? You're you're quitting? Like what?" I really, yeah, for me, faith is always what got me through. I really felt like I was doing the legwork, that there was no way something wasn't going to come of it. Maybe it wasn't going to look exactly the way I wanted it to, but I was getting enough progress and experience, whatever, that something was going to click. I just genuinely had that conviction and belief that everything has prepared me for this. So what a shame if I don't put action behind it, like what a shame if I don't take that leap of faith. If you don't, you'll never know. And that for me was what made the decision easier. I knew that if I stayed in that production role, it was eliminated from the equation. I knew the answer was no if I stayed in that job. If I left, at least the answer was maybe, and I'll take maybe over a no. So my advice is to, first of all, don't rush it. I don't ever want people to think that it's an overnight industry. It's not. I mean, like, you really do have to allow yourself. I think back on like year 2 as a PA, thinking I was ready for Sports Center. And I look back on video from those years and I'm like, burn it, delete it, get rid of it, never again. From the accent to the enunciation to what the heck I was saying, it was awful. And so thank goodness people around me had enough sense to say, you're not ready yet. And so don't rush it. Be receptive to insight and receptive to learning and being where your feet are for a period of time. But when you've gotten enough under your belt and you know that you are ready for that shot, be open and willing to do the hard things to make it happen, because everyone in this industry has that crossroad moment that they get to, and you want to be ready for that moment when it comes, but also be bold enough to do something about it when it comes to. So I think that everyone's path is completely different, and you really have to know yourself and have great mentors that will be honest with you. And then when that moment comes, want it bad enough that you're willing to take a risk to have it.
Awesome. Well, great stuff, Taylor. And when is the LSU Kentucky game? Excuse me.
Yes, I know. Girl, with the national championship last night, I'm like, quarters, rotations. I don't know what's happening. The transition is harder than you would think. We will be on the air Friday night, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN2. So make sure you tune in.
Yeah, so catch her on that, and also catch over our friends at Underdog. You can download the app today, like I mentioned earlier. NFL Conference Championships coming up, so we have plenty of props with that. So what are you waiting for? Just use our code SECU to score $75 in bonus entries. Underdog, make picks, win money. You must be 18 and up, 19 and up in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 and up in Colorado for some games, 20 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. If you're worried about your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Thank you, Taylor. Again, have a great call, and we will be watching. And guys, go follow SEC Gymnastics.
Please do. Tune in. It is just getting started, and this is some good stuff. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you. Bye.